global temperatures are getting warmer. Glaciers are melting. Sea levels are rising. Scientists agree that increasing carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere are changing our climate. Whoa! For some, where those gases are coming from is still a matter of debate. Planes, cars, and industry are commonly accepted as the main culprits. Volcanic eruptions are also known for huge amounts of gas into the atmosphere. I'm making it my mission to climb into one of the world's most active volcanoes to find out if those gases are contributing to climate change.
It blows me away every time I see this many cars. And this is just one highway in one city. How much carbon dioxide are we putting into the atmosphere? But it's not just us. There are other more natural sources of greenhouse gas as well. Things such as melting permafrost and cow farts, believe it or not. Some people even say that the volcanoes of the world are creating more greenhouse gas than all of the human activity combined. How do you respond to people who are, I don't even use the word skeptic, because skeptic is not the right word.
Deniers is a better word.
Deniers who are claiming volcanoes contribute more greenhouse gases than all of the industrialized countries put together.
What we're dealing here with is a deeply held belief system. It could have elements of political persuasion.
They're usually sort of predisposed to believe anything that means you don't have to do anything, don't have to take action, right? So if it's just volcanoes, well, there's nothing we can do about that, so that's fine, just let the volcanoes go off and nature will take care of itself, you know.
At any given time, there are 50 to 60 active volcanoes around the world. Eruptions expel huge amounts of gas into the atmosphere, which some believe is leading to climate change.
I don't know if I buy that, but it's something I really need to check out, and I know just the place.
My curiosity brings me to the nation of Vanuatu. It's a small archipelago of about 80 islands in the South Pacific Ocean. I've landed in the capital of Port Vila, but my final destination is the neighboring island of Ambra, the home of one of the world's most active volcanoes.
The weather there is notoriously awful. There's volcanic gas, there's acid rain, and, of course, the threat is always there for a larger eruption. So it's not the most hospitable place on Earth.
I know this area of the world well. I even got married in 2006 on the lip of an exploding volcano in Vanuatu.
That's where we're getting married, right at the top of the Yasser, and it's real active today.
Now I'm going to an even more active and more remote volcano on the island of Ambra. I'm getting some help on this expedition.
Sarah.
Finally here.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Welcome to Vanuatu.
Sarah Hofritz is an accomplished young geologist from Denmark. She has the equipment to help us determine how much dangerous gas the volcano is emitting and if it's contributing to climate change. Frequent eruptions on Ambra create weather conditions that make flying to the island a challenge. It looks like we've lucked out with a clear day.
The trick is it going to be clear on Ambra? Typically, the place is shrouded in cloud a lot of the time. So I've got my fingers crossed. I'm very hopeful. So far, so good.
I'm very interested in seeing how nature is behaving in this setting. It's going to be cool.
There are two active volcanic cones on this island, Mount Benbow and Mount Maroon. Over the past decade, there's been an increase in emissions of volcanic gases from both of them. In 2009, approximately 15,000 tons of sulfur dioxide was emitted into the atmosphere in one day. Despite the danger of these frequent eruptions, almost 9,000 people live on the island of Ambra. To them, the volcano is a part of life. Before we head to the summit, Sarah and I want to gauge the effect the volcano is having on the local village of Endu.
Is this your drinking water?
Yeah. This water has a source right up on the mountain.
And is it from a well?
No,
or a spring?
It's spring water.
Spring water.
Yeah.
During major explosive eruptions, huge amounts of volcanic gas, including sulfur dioxide, get ejected into the atmosphere. Large clouds can pollute the air downwind of the volcano, and when mixed with moisture, can lead to acid rain. This contamination has harmful effects on water supplies for people, plants, and animals. Sarah came equipped to determine if this community is at risk. Today, we're testing the drinking water.
What do we have here?
This is a conductivity meter, and that will tell me how many ions in the water.
270.
Yeah, 270 microsiemens. So that means there definitely is some ions in the water. Very likely some sulfur and some fluorine, which is still rather high.
To put it into perspective, pure drinking water typically contains less than 5 microsiemens of concentrated minerals. This town's water is over 50 times that amount. Drinking contaminated water can damage teeth and bones. A recent government of Vanuatu report predicts a dire future for the island as future eruptions and resulting contamination from acid rain is almost certain. The brooding outline of the volcano is nearly always shrouded in gas and cloud.
When we have a volcano that's active like Abram is, I want to see how much sulfur dioxide and how much carbon dioxide is being emitted at the volcano.
We know volcanic eruptions emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but enough to cause climate change? It's time to find out.
Awesome.
For the next 5 days, we'll be eating, sleeping, and working at the summit of this active volcano. This is about as far away from civilization as it gets.
Well, welcome to Manor.
That's your line.
This is your line.
The summit of a volcano is one of the most dangerous places on Earth. The air is heavy with a mixture of gases, and when inhaled, it can be deadly.
The conditions up here are so bad, I'd say the only place you'd find them is on another planet.
Our guide is Jeff Mackley, nicknamed Danger Man. He was the first person to explore the depths of this volcano.
The camp looks like it's taken a beating.
Hey, George.
Yes?
This is your tent?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
When you've got hurricane force winds mixed with very sharp gravel and high strength sulfuric acid, it's like somebody firing a fire hose full of gravel and sulfuric acid at you, and that can go on for a week.
The condition of this tent is a testament to what the weather can really be like up here. Extremely high winds, sandblasting with all this volcanic ash and gravel, and of course, the acid in the atmosphere has weakened this material down to nothing.
It may be dangerous at the summit, but tomorrow we'll climb down into the belly of the beast.
You can feel the heat all the way from up here.
It's very violent.
Boiling pools of lava and seemingly endless plumes of gas await us at the bottom of the crater. But I need to get closer to the volcano to find out more about the gases it's emitting. And that's where the real danger is.
Very few volcanoes are capable of producing the amount of gas that Ambram can. There are several vents here that are all vigorously degassing hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen fluoride.
Are these dangerous gases contributing to our warming planet? Sarah has the latest technology to measure just that. She's using a fly speck to measure the sulfur dioxide levels in the air at Ambram.
So now it's scanning through the plume, going from over here and scanning the way through.
This data will reflect the amount of toxic SO2 at the summit and help us understand if and how this contributes to climate change. But to get more data, we'll have to go straight to the source.
Sarah is getting her chance to go into the volcano, so this is going to be really, really fun.
But today, visibility is poor, and I'm hoping it doesn't get any worse.
The entire crater right now is completely filled with gas.
But let's try and see if it clears up.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right.
You good to go?
I feel so.
For even the most experienced climber, this descent is a challenge.
Nice steady free fall.
Brad, our guide, will be leading us down the tricky descent, and I'll be following behind Sarah. With almost a straight drop of 1,200 feet to the bottom, a lot could go wrong.
To get down to the bottom, it's so deep that the ropes just are not going to be long enough, so we have to do a multi-stage rappel in 3 different steps.
Can you imagine all this used to be covered by rock, and then it had this big explosion, and now we're just in the hole of it?
Now that Sarah has safely reached the 100-yard ledge, I can start my descent.
This is insane. It's beautiful.
You know, everything around here is trying to kill you, but apart from that, it's great.
The weather is closing in, making it hard to see where we're climbing.
Not feeling very confident about this.
Brad calls off the climb. It's too dangerous. The visibility has gotten so poor that we'd be doing the descent virtually blind. Our visit to the crater will have to wait. Maybe next time.
Visibility has dropped down tremendously, which is never a good thing around here. And I'm starting to feel some drizzle coming in, which usually leads to torrential rains and storms.
You can hear the roar of the wind and the gravel being brought towards you. And then your tent just violently shakes. And it just keeps battering and battering and battering your tent until, you know, bit by bit there might be something that comes loose.
Storm has delayed our mission.
Next tent basically shredded.
We need to seal that corner up too, or we'll lose that.
We've done everything we can to secure our tents. Now we just need to hunker down and ride out this ferocious storm. It was a tough night, but by the morning, it's over. Now we have to get back to work, which means getting to the bottom of the crater, poor visibility or not. Sarah isn't joining me on my descent today, as last night's storm took away her valuable research time.
The goal is to get all the way to the bottom, 1,200 feet, gather some rock samples for Sarah, and get some thermal imagery of the lava lake itself. Big day today. Rock and roll. It's ridiculous. Just the sound of the lava lake below. It's wild. I've described it to people as sounding like the devil's washing machine. And you don't want to end up in that spin cycle. The biggest danger is rock fall. If you knock a rope, rock comes down, hits your buddy in the head, you're dead meat. The trick is slow and steady, nice and safe, because anything and everything can go wrong here.
At the summit, Sarah is measuring how much carbon dioxide is being emitted from the soil. As long as a volcano is active, it's emitting gases. The carbon dioxide migrates through cracks to the soil on the side of the volcano. The levels of CO2 found will help Sarah in her analysis of whether volcanoes are leading to climate change.
3,000, 4,000, 5,000, I'm getting really high values. I want to see how it compares to measurements up on the crater side and getting closer and closer to the caldera rim.
It takes me 2 grueling hours to make it down to the bottom of the crater.
Top side, I am free of the rope. Okay, we're gonna get our first look at this thing up close. Wow. This is liquid rock. The heat is just unbelievable right now. It's burning the back of my neck.
Lava lakes are a rare phenomenon, formed when molten lava becomes trapped in a volcanic crater.
First things first, I'm gonna get some thermal images.
Examining thermal images helps us understand more about the volcano and its activity.
Unless you've actually experienced lava firsthand, it's hard to comprehend just how hot it is.
Normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The average oven reaches 450 degrees Fahrenheit.
1200 Fahrenheit.
This is a whole other level of heat.
1400, 1600, 1697. Holy cow. I gotta be careful, I'm definitely within the splash zone.
Even the smallest piece of flying lava can burn through my clothes and skin.
Ah, it's burning. Woo! All this ejecta coming out of the lava lake are very fresh, so that should be perfect for what Sarah needs. I just gotta grab a couple of fresh samples and watch my back at the same time. It's really scary turning your back on this thing. This really fine stuff is Pele's hair. When the bubbles on the lava lake burst, they form these tiny little hairs and they'll drift all the way up to camp. I can get a little bit closer, but I'm gonna have to put on my special heat suit.
It's a good thing I came prepared. This suit can withstand temperatures up to 3,000 degrees.
I think I'm ready. If you want to get a really good view, you have to be protected. Otherwise, the radiant heat is just too much. Wow. That is about as crazy as it gets. My big concern right now is watching for pieces of lava splashing up. Wow. Here's some big pieces coming. Big pieces coming.
I can't leave before collecting some samples for Sarah.
Oh, here we go. Here's a really fresh piece, still glowing hot. Oh. Even with the gloves. Today was a success. Got up close, got some really good samples, some good thermal data.
The newly formed lava samples will give us the most accurate results about their chemical makeup and indicate the quantity and types of gases being emitted. This will help Sarah determine if volcanoes are contributing to climate change.
It's just, really, it's not like anywhere else. This pit, you expect the devil himself to come jumping out of it. I got some goodies for you. These are the ones that were fresh out of the volcano. They were so hot. So this is the newest rock on Earth. You want it fresh? I got you fresh.
We've now collected data from the summit and straight from the lava lake in the crater. If this volcano is having any effect on climate change, we'll have the numbers to prove it. We've spent the last few days on this volcano gathering data to help investigate the claim that volcanoes contribute to climate change. Now, it's the moment of truth.
What you got?
I'm looking at some of the data, and I've summed it up.
First, Sarah analyzes the carbon dioxide readings she took from the soil surrounding the volcano. How much gas is it emitting?
The carbon dioxide is up around 21,000 tons a day.
21,000 tons a day just from here, yeah?
Yes, from the Ambrum.
Next, Sarah adds up the sulfur dioxide emissions she took at the summit to see how much Ambrum is releasing.
The volcano here is emitting around 7,800 tons a day. It's a lot of sulfur dioxide.
But to get a clear answer, Sarah needs to add the sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide results to the data that's being collected from other volcanoes around the world.
Total volcanic budget, global, that's 0.26 gigatons a year. So it's quite a lot.
But most importantly, how does that compare to human activity?
Human activity is 35 gigatons a year.
35 gigatons.
Yes.
Versus 0.2 for all volcanoes combined.
Yes.
So, do volcanoes contribute to global warming?
I think you're gonna say no.
No.
Definitely
no. It doesn't. We have the numbers to prove it.
Yes.
In fact, according to data collected by scientists around the world, the sulfur dioxide gas being released here can actually help the planet. The gas forms tiny droplets of sulfuric acid, also known as volcanic aerosols, which block sunlight, and that causes the climate to cool.
After large eruptions like Mount Pinatubo, Mount St. Helens, detectable drops in temperature were found around the world due to sulfur dioxide and other aerosols in the atmosphere from these eruptions.
Even with all this unimaginable heat, power, and gas that comes out of not just this volcano, but all the world's volcanoes, the amount of greenhouse gas that comes out of them only amounts to about 1% of the total greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. Whew. The rest comes from us. Volcanoes are not to blame. We have volcanoes to thank.
This is like no storm in the record books.
Oh my God. Oh, we got a whiteout going on.
It's like being inside of a car wash, blasting curtains of rain, so much energy all around you.
Winds are gusting to hurricane force now.
This entire city is in the dark, and there's just this massive multi-structure fire, and no one's there to fight it.
We're gonna attempt to save these people.
I just kept urging people, please stay off the roadways.
Oh, come on, sweetie.
Oh my goodness.
As temperatures rise all around the globe, natural disasters are becoming more violent and more frequent. Extreme weather survivors have captured the intensity and the magnitude of these events. These are the first-hand accounts of a planet going rogue. In the past 2 decades, hurricanes along the North American coast have grown more powerful and destructive. Hurricane Katrina breaches the levees of New Orleans, the city's last line of defense. Hurricane Harvey slams Texas and shuts down 1/5 of the U.S.'s fuel output. And in October 2016, Hurricane Matthew wreaks havoc across the continent, beginning in Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, and Haiti. Then charging all the way up the U.S. coast to Canada.
Holy mackerel.
Killing hundreds and displacing millions. By October 6th, Matthew has already decimated parts of the Caribbean and is bearing down on the Florida coast. Meteorologist Brian Norcross is quick to recognize the danger that lies ahead.
So Matthew's moving through the Caribbean, and the storm exploded in strength. And then as it came north, we were very fearful that this giant hurricane was going to come slamming into the coast.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tony. They just updated the storm, and it looks like it has gained strength.
Tony Kazaza lives on one of Florida's barrier islands. Like everyone on the coast, he's scrambling to get to safety.
It's a lot. There's a lot to think of. You've got a family, the kids. Make sure you have everything, you know, that you need. Where are you going? Are you going to a hotel? Most hotels were sold out within a 6-hour drive.
With nowhere left to go, a friend who lives inland offers Tony a place to stay.
And as I loaded up my truck, reality struck, and it's like, I may not come back to this home.
I have some friends who are staying here on beachside, and I wish they weren't. I've been through earthquakes, I've been through tornadoes, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared.
Most Floridians know all too well the devastating power of a hurricane. The last major hurricane to slam into the coast was Andrew in 1992. It was one of the most destructive hurricanes in the history of the United States. Just like Andrew, Hurricane Matthew starts as a tropical storm system off the coast of Africa. But as it heads west, it grows into a powerful cyclone that swirls around a low-pressure center, or eye. When Matthew reaches the Caribbean and southern U.S. coast, warm surface waters fuel its growth and turn the hurricane into a deadly killer.
If you're watching and you're in an evacuation area, get out. Don't take a chance. Time is running out. This is clearly going to either have a direct hit or come right along our coast, and we're going to have hurricane-force winds.
Many Floridians respond to the governor's plea. Drinking water, food, fuel, and other basic survival supplies quickly sell out. But many people choose to ignore the mandatory evacuation order.
And I get a call from the president of the network, and he tells me that the reporters that we have stationed up and down the East Coast are saying people here are not taking this seriously. They're not evacuating in large enough numbers, and a lot of them aren't even really preparing in a big way for this storm. And he said, I think maybe we should do a message and really convey our concerns and our thoughts about the potential here for the loss of life. I'm Senior Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross, and I want to talk to my friends in Florida. We are concerned about reports of people deciding to stay in areas under mandatory evacuation orders. This is a mistake. This is not hype. This is not hyperbole. And I am not kidding. I cannot overstate the danger of this storm.
Evacuating motorists create gridlock on the roads heading inland. Public shelters are overflowing, and the residents who remain behind have a violent storm headed right for them. As Matthew begins to strike the coast, Tony Kazaza reaches his friend's place just minutes ahead of the storm.
Here we go. First band arriving.
Yep, it's about to get real.
You see the clouds moving in. You see the bands of rain start to happen. And what's to come and the unknown of that, riding a storm out in a home with boarded up windows, there's no light to the outside. It's just sounds. Oh my God. And I don't know that I'll ever unhear them. They were scary.
120 kilometers north of Tony, hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth is rushing to keep ahead of the storm.
Take a look at the radar. This is the band that's passing over New Smyrna Beach right now. Farther down to the southeast here, you can see the edge of the heavier part of Matthew coming into view.
Mark has an array of meteorological equipment to set up to measure and track the approaching storm.
So I set up the anemometer system to measure wind speed, the barometer to measure the pressure.
The National Hurricane Center depends on real-time observations from storm trackers like Mark to help verify their forecasts.
Matthew is now closing in to either make landfall in Florida or get that core right up to the coast. And there's this big fear that it might reach Category 5. I'm thinking, okay, that's not good. And the clock is running down to 0.
Hurricanes are ranked by the Saffir-Simpson wind scale, which uses a 5-level rating system based on sustained wind speeds. A Category 1 hurricane can result in extensive damage to trees, roads, and homes, and cause power outages. A Category 5 storm flattens structures and landscapes and renders large areas uninhabitable for months. On the night of October 6th, The eye of this punishing Category 4 hurricane is just off the Florida coast and battering the land with gusts of over 180 kilometers an hour. The next morning, an oceanside condo in New Smyrna Beach gives hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth a ringside seat to the gathering storm.
I'm going to turn the camera around and show you my world. Winds are gusting to hurricane force now. Unbelievable.
I wake up because you can just feel the building shuddering. You hear stuff rattling, and I jump out and I go out to see what's going on. And it's like being inside of a car wash. It's just blasting curtains of rain and so much energy all around you.
The way the wind just blasts that rain down, amazing. The transfer of energy to the surface over there. Look at that, those downbursts, wow.
And the eye on the eye wall is a few miles just offshore, but it's closing in.
Oh my goodness.
With South Florida in its wake, Matthew charges north. Next stop, Daytona Beach.
Never gone live, but I just woke up and here we go.
Jimmy Anthony ignored an evacuation order, thinking he could take shelter from the storm in his home. But now, he isn't so sure.
Jeez. My poor doc. Holy.
I checked the news, and that's when they said basically it was still beelining for us. The news portrayed it as like the worst storm since Andrew. And that's when I kind of was worried about the choice that I had made to stay. And I was actually terrified.
Oh my God. Still got a few more hours, still high tide even. These waves are not good. Woo-wee.
The impact of the storm was happening at the same time as the high tide. So it was just like, would you say the perfect storm or the horrible scenario? That's what it was.
Oh, what the heck's going on? Oh, we got a whiteout going on. Oh my God. Oh my God.
In the past few years, hurricanes have become more powerful and more destructive. The year 2016 was no exception, when Hurricane Matthew's brutal assault on the Caribbean left hundreds dead and damaged thousands of homes. Now, Matthew is rampaging up the Florida coast and gaining strength by the minute.
Oh.
In Daytona Beach, punishing winds and a rising tide threaten to demolish Jimmy Anthony's home.
I think right now my main concern is this seawall. If it goes, I don't know what the hell would happen. I don't know if the house would start to go or what.
The seawall was being collapsed, like the dirt was being eroded from behind it, because actually the waves were going over it and then washing it.
Oh man, something just popped. I think one of the pylons. Oh, the seawall's going, it's gone. Oh, the seawall is gone.
Without a seawall to shield his valuable beachfront property from the storm, Jimmy decides to say goodbye. He calls his cousin Jed, who's riding out the storm a few miles away.
I got in communication with my cousin, and I was like, I think the house is gonna go, maybe just come pick me up.
I'm going to be getting out of here. 30 feet of yard and seawall are gone in about 30 minutes. Oh, if it falls. Yeah.
But just as the waves begin to swallow up his backyard, Jimmy gets a lucky break.
I had a shuffleboard court, and it ended up falling and creating another seawall.
Shuffleboard might save us.
And that's when we were like, all right, are we gonna go or are we gonna try to do this? And we were like, let's try to do it.
Jimmy and his cousin get down to work, building a makeshift seawall.
Whatever we could pick up, we threw in there. My neighbor had some rocks and some stuff over here. I literally grabbed the carpets from underneath my dining room table and my living room, ripped those out and threw those out there. I just had done my dock, so I had some old boards that we threw in there. The grill, barbecue grill, a tile cutting saw, I threw that in there. We threw everything at it but the kitchen sink. We didn't do that. But this is what we've done. We threw everything at this son of a... We don't back down. We get it done.
Jimmy and his cousin aren't giving up, but their troubles are far from over.
Well, really need this thing to stop.
The gale force winds and high tides are only a preamble to the menacing main event, the storm surge.
Oh my goodness.
Here's what storm surge means in very real terms. It means you can't survive, because even if the water is only 3 feet high, look at it come up on the scale here and look what happens to cars. Cars get washed away. Everything that's at ground level finally gets moved out, because it's not just the height of the water, it's the push of the storm behind that water. Matthew is approaching the Central Florida coastline, and this is where the maximum storm surge is going to occur. And people in Central Florida don't have any experience really with storms coming in that way. I know that because I grew up there. Now, imagine it goes to 6 feet. Now we're over my head. It's completely unsurvivable because this water is moving. It's not just lifting. It's not like you could float in it. You'd be swept away, full of debris, full of all kinds of chemicals. The ocean is incredibly powerful. If you go a little over 3 feet this way, about a meter this way, and a meter that way, and a meter that weighs almost a ton. And if you think of the ocean full of tons of water plowing onto the shore, the damage can be spectacular, and it's impossible to survive that.
While the Central Florida coast contends with destructive storm surge, in the skies above, a completely different kind of battle is underway. The hurricane hunters are collecting data for the National Hurricane Center to help with forecasting the path and intensity of Matthew. The flight director is 37-year veteran Jack Parrish.
These flights are really intense. You fly a long time through light to moderate chop. And then you fly through rain bands and it gets a little choppier, but you never mistake an eye wall. Almost all of the energy of the storm, copious rainfall where you think you're flying a submarine rather than flying an airplane, and you're seeing the airplane jumping up and down, the people jumping up and down. The reward is, once you get through that area of greatest hazard, then you're going to come into that pristine eye. You look left and you look right and you see the stadium of clouds around you. The only trepidation is the only way back out is the same way you got in.
In the course of a single flight, the hurricane hunter's aircraft can punch through the eye wall a staggering 10 times.
The P-3 aircraft is bristling with radars. What we're trying to do is to map out the areas of the strongest winds. Is this storm getting stronger? Is the pressure dropping? Are the winds getting stronger? We're transmitting data in real time. We have bursts of data that go out every 10 minutes.
One of the hurricane hunter's favorite weapons for collecting data is the drop sonde.
A drop sonde is a 1-pound fiberboard cylinder, and it drops down out of the airplane. It uses a parachute to slow its fall and orient itself, so it'll do good weather observations on the way down. And it transmits data back to the airplane 4 times per second.
Jack's team sends their data to the National Hurricane Center for analysis.
The data coming out of the aircraft, we read their analysis to understand how it's going to affect the land and how it's going to affect people. Let's look at the late advisory just in from the National Hurricane Center. Category 2 hurricane now, 110-mile-an-hour winds.
Although Matthew has been downgraded to a Category 2 storm, winds and storm surge are still keeping communities in its path on high alert.
Mark
Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Take a look now at the latest track forecast for Hurricane Matthew. What I'm going to do is start pulling up shop and heading up the coast along I-95 and try to get into South Carolina. I have a camera in Charleston that runs for 66 hours. I set it up, I don't remember when I set it up, the other day. It's gonna run out tomorrow.
My camera system in Charleston at the harbor is still running, but I wasn't sure if it was gonna continue to run through Saturday morning when Matthew now looks like it's gonna make a pretty close approach, if not landfall right in Charleston or nearby.
But I wanna get up here to the Charleston harbor and replace the batteries so that we can monitor what happens as Matthew moves up. So that's what's happening. I am in New Smyrna Beach, getting ready to depart, and the highest wind that I recorded on the weather station over on the Causeway Bridge was 93 miles per hour.
There's nothing safe about the trip he's about to embark on. To reach his camera, Mark will have to travel through hurricane-force winds and blinding rain.
It's very dangerous because you're getting hit by wind from the side and torrential rain so hard at some cases that you just can't see even 100 feet in front of your vehicle. And you got to just grip that wheel and focus that if you make one mistake, it's all over.
Mark arrives in Charleston just in time to install fresh batteries in his camera.
I arrived around 11 o'clock Friday night, changed the batteries out. There was nobody downtown in Charleston. That's so surreal to see it like that. But it allows me to get in, do my work, and then get out of there.
A few hours after Mark changes the batteries, the outer edges of Matthew pass over South Carolina.
Even though I'm capturing meteorological data with the anemometer that measures the wind speed and the gust, etc., I also want to be able to capture visual data.
The visuals speak for themselves. Within a few hours, the Charleston harbor is submerged under 6 feet of water. An extraordinary event that gives Mark and scientists critical insights into future hurricanes. Matthew is now marauding across the Carolinas. Over 160 kilometers inland, Officer Asia Cannon uses a military surplus vehicle to patrol the city center.
Please stay indoors. Do not try to go down these roads. These roads are flooded. Your car will stall out and you will be stuck.
There was no sign of that rain stopping at any point. No one realized the dangers that actually lied ahead.
Hey, there's somebody over there to the right.
Hurricane forecasting has significantly improved in the past decades. Yet despite all the warnings, every hurricane season, the weather's fury causes death and millions of dollars of damages.
Oh my goodness.
In 2016, after tearing up the Florida coast, Hurricane Matthew advances into the Carolinas.
This flooding is dangerous. Please stay indoors.
In Fayetteville, police officer Asia Cannon patrols the flooded streets, searching for people in distress.
All right, guys, right now we are live. We are on Robinson Street.
There was no sign of that rain stopping at any point. So I kept urging people like, hey, please stay off the roadways.
As you can see right now, there's a car stuck in the roadway. We're in police rescue 2. We're gonna attempt to save these people. We're not sure if they're still in their vehicles. You see anybody?
No, it's clear. It's clear.
Okay, guys, that car is clear. But as you can see, these roads are flooding. Robinson Street, guys. We're on Robinson Street. Hey, there's somebody over there to the right.
I remember as we get to the Robinson and MLK intersection, and we see this car at this off-ramp, and I see a lady. It's like she's standing on her car seat, trying to stay above the water.
If you guys can see, this is why we encourage people. Please stay indoors. Do not try to go down these roads. These roads are flooded. Your car will stall out and you will be stuck. All right, guys. Police Rescue 2, we're going to try to back up to this lady here, and we're going to try to get her in here. Hold on, ma'am. He's going to come out.
And that's when you realize, like, hey, she's really in danger because she's just a couple moments from having nothing else to really sit on. And as we're pulling her from the vehicle, this child just came out of nowhere.
Oh, come on, sweetie. Oh, it's okay. Come here.
And, you know, my heart sunk. We're talking about a 1 or 2 year old child that's in this situation, and Lieutenant Joyce handed him to me, and he's cold, he's screaming, he's crying.
Look, guys, I just made a new friend. Hey, cutie. Her car got stalled out. She got caught up in the flood. She has her child with her.
They were in a very dangerous situation. The car was almost to a point where it could have possibly floated away.
Again, guys, we encourage everybody, please stay home and stay safe.
Matthew is now a Category 1 hurricane, but its destructive power remains undiminished. More than half of the 46 American fatalities occurred during this phase of the storm, many of them motorists trapped in washed-out vehicles.
Matthew was bringing this tremendous amount of moisture with it. Category 1 winds are still quite strong and can do damage right at the coast. But the big threat was that moisture, and that moisture was going to dramatically impact North Carolina.
Flash floods submerged roads and wrecked thousands of homes. On October 8th alone, rescue workers on land and by air assist over 1,000 North Carolinians. And back on the coastline, the tale of the 400-kilometer-wide storm whiplashes Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. News reporter Summer Dash is at the center of the action.
We want to check in now with Summer Dash. She has been roving, if you will, throughout the area, giving us a tour. And where are you right now, Summer, and what are you seeing?
Well, you guys, we weren't planning on being in the car for this live shot, but we had to jump in the car really fast. That's what we just got out of. We were perfectly fine 10 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden that stuff comes up really, really quickly on you.
After the storm surge nearly sweeps Summer away, she and her cameraman retreat to their hotel on the other side of town.
We're driving back to the hotel, and we can't get to the actual hotel parking lot because Ocean Boulevard was flooded.
Reporter Dash and her cameraman abandon their vehicle and continue on foot.
We have just barely made it back to our hotel here. Take a look at what it looks like down here. So this is Ocean Boulevard and Main Street. It is entirely flooded.
There's no one in this hotel except for us in our little oceanfront room, and the power's out, the elevators aren't working. So I get this text message from one of my police officer sources in North Myrtle Beach, and he says, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I don't think you should leave your hotel because if something happens to you, I can't come save you." Within seconds after I get that text message, my boss calls me and says, "Hey, there's a really bad fire, we need you to go."
By the time she gets to the scene, the fire is burning out of control.
Summer Dash here, we're in North Myrtle Beach. This is the Cherry Grove area, a fire right now here. I'm gonna try to get you a little bit closer here, give me 1 second.
This entire city is in the dark, and there's just this giant light from fire.
We were talking to some firefighters earlier today. Police, they said, you know, with the wind so high, they were not able to come out here and fight this fire.
This is a massive multi-structure fire, and no one's there to fight it.
The winds were just too strong. We have a policy, anything over 45 miles an hour, nothing goes out. And the winds were probably sustained 50, 60 with gusts higher.
The apparatus from the engines to the trucks, they just act like a sail when you're driving down the road, and they can blow them over.
And then with the high tide, with the flooding, trying to get an engine down in there was going to be next to nil.
It's a little tough knowing that you can't respond to a fire when that's your job.
At around 7 p.m., the National Guard offers to transport firefighters in an armored vehicle, stable enough to navigate through wind and water.
I loaded up with the military, and 2 other firefighters went with us.
We hooked in straight to the hydrants. We got 2 lines in place.
They have these little hoses, and I can see they're not shooting the hoses on the flames. They're shooting them on the condos next door that aren't on fire yet.
I think, you know what, this third one just caught fire. This is now 3 buildings plus these large villas over here. There goes the front of that building.
We didn't know how much longer we could hold it. And probably 45 minutes into that operation, the winds finally dropped down to that 45. And so, yeah, they were able to start getting engines in there.
All right, here is the first fire truck we are seeing of the night has just arrived. Looks like they've got the really strong hoses out now.
We had the engines and the power so we could up the pressure, so we were able to actually kind of overcome the wind.
In just a few hours, the fire destroys 3 entire housing units. And there's not much Summer can do but record it.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Really a sad situation, you guys.
My mindset when I'm doing this video is just, I know that this is a hard thing for many people to be watching. I know that. And I know that a fire means someone lost their home. And I know that this fire may mean someone died. I have no idea if anyone is in that rubble at this point.
Back inland the following morning, rising floodwaters have brought chaos and destruction to Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Hurricane Matthew, they only told us it's gonna be about 10 inches of rain. Obviously, we can see that is a lot.
Cuevas Hart is a war veteran, but he's never seen anything quite like this.
I was in total shock. I didn't believe that the water could even get this high. It was pretty devastating. You know, it came through here, pretty much no warning. I've never seen anything like Matthew, ever. There were roads washed out, there were trees down, there were cars flooded out, and I stumbled across this neighborhood that was completely submerged underwater.
When Hart goes live, a man in Texas immediately replies. His brother is trapped in one of the houses. The 2016 hurricane season was not the busiest or the costliest, but it was one of the deadliest. After devastating the Atlantic coast, Hurricane Matthew buries inland North Carolina under a deluge of floodwaters.
Look at that, another road closed. Dang.
Fayetteville resident Cuevas Hart hopes he can save a man's life by using his drone.
I take my drone back and just get a big aerial shot and I can see a boat off in the distance.
Using his drone as a guide, Hart leads the rescue team to the house where the man is trapped with his dog.
I didn't feel like a hero because I came to find out that this guy was a veteran. I'm a veteran. He served, I served. I feel like it was my duty to help my brother at that point in time.
As Hurricane Matthew makes its way up north along the Atlantic coast, the winds subside and the skies turn bright and blue. And yet panic begins to spread as people are forced to flee their flooded homes in search of food and shelter.
It is getting really serious now here in Kinston in Lenoir County.
It's a script hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth has seen play out before.
Now you have this next part of the disaster, sort of the last chapter, whatever you want to call it, of the river flood. And that literally took days to unfold.
Back flooding into places, traffic jammed up everywhere, people panicking, trying to get out.
We knew as it was happening that there was a massive flood threat, but we didn't know the scope of it and exactly who was going to be affected. And I don't think we had an appreciation for how bad it was going to be.
Houses flood, businesses flood, schools are having to close down, children are now delayed for school. It's just this cascading effect.
When you get that combination of heavy rain at a higher elevation and over an extended area, so all of the tributaries coming down to the river are all full when they reach the big rivers that go to the coast, you end up with a massive flood, and that's what we had in Matthew.
Matthew is now a tropical storm, but instead of fizzling away offshore, it merges with a low pressure system, builds up in size and power, and heads north. Destination, the Canadian Atlantic provinces.
Tonight, furious flooding. The remnants of Hurricane Matthew have pummeled Cape Breton Island with hurricane-style rainfall and flooding and tropical storm force winds.
So you had all this tropical energy sort of pulled out of Matthew itself, the tropical cyclone, absorbed into an entirely different storm system that went up and dropped 6 to 10 inches of rain in some portions of southeast Canada.
The streets and the roads and the basements, many of them are still waist deep in water tonight. The schools were closed today. Many thousands of people in Cape Breton and elsewhere will spend at least another night without power.
Wow, I've never seen it like this.
Hurricanes are not, alien to the Canadian Maritimes, but it's not a regular occurrence. And so from the Caribbean islands all the way up into the Canadian Maritimes, Matthew left its mark.
Holy mackerel.
After a violent rampage lasting more than a week, Matthew finally breaks apart in the North Atlantic. In its wake, millions are left to recover. But the worst off are the most vulnerable.
We have been getting updates from everywhere, and by now, everyone can tell it's not good.
Wanda Tima is a member of a large delegation of Haitian Americans preparing a relief mission for survivors on the southern tip of the Caribbean island.
This is stuff that people have been dropping off from all over the country. We have clothes, we have canned goods, we have maxi pads and alcohol and Band-Aids, but we need stuff like Tylenol, we need peroxide.
I was definitely surprised at how fast the community came together and the urgency that everyone had. Anytime you hear anything is headed towards Haiti, you're nervous.
8 days after Matthew slammed into Haiti, Wanda and her delegation of volunteers leave on their mission.
We are officially in Haiti. We just landed. We have all of our crew here. We're packing bags.
So we're outside the airport, all the bags are coming off, and we're loading the trucks.
We have our Hannah nurses here with us.
As Wanda and her fellow volunteers leave the airport, the harsh reality of the situation hits home.
Sitting on the bus, you're already seeing the devastation. Flooding, roofs are gone, houses are gone. At this point, we know exactly how bad it was, and it was bad.
For more than a week, Hurricane Matthew delivers chaos and destruction to the eastern seaboard of the United States and up north into Canada.
Wow, wow, wow. Unbelievable.
But it's the Caribbean where Matthew hits the hardest.
Matthew was an extreme hurricane in the Caribbean. We've never seen a Category 5 that far south, so close to the South American coast, and it strengthened at this unbelievable rate from 80 miles an hour to 165 miles per hour in the blink of an eye.
With an overall death count of 603, Hurricane Matthew killed more than 550 in Haiti alone.
It was an incredible tragedy in Haiti and the extreme eastern part of Cuba. A tragedy beyond what they've never seen in those parts of those countries.
We are officially here after 6 hours of driving.
Wanda Tima and a delegation of Haitian American volunteers were among the first to offer assistance.
As soon as the buses would pull in, you just see everybody go, ah! They'd be waving, and people were so happy to see us. And it was like happiness to, I need to be seen right now. I'm hungry, I need this, I need that.
They sit here and basically wait in line. And they're seeing them one by one or as a family. And once they're seen by the nurses, we have all the stuff here for them.
So each of the locations we went to had between 800 to 1,200 people. You're thinking, wait, how the nurses gonna do this?
Yeah, okay. It's okay, we got you.
And I realized right away, Haiti's not ready for any kind of disaster.
back in the U.S.
Here is a view. This is actually coming inside the home.
You know, you don't really know where to start.
A stunning home video makes national news.
Chairs are floating around. I never thought we'd get this much.
You know, the reporters up there kind of narrating my story. That's when you realize, like, this is real. Like, this is really happening. It's not going away. And you just kind of feel lost. Like, what's going to happen next?
Jody's house in Fair Bluff overlooks the Lumber River, which has completely breached its banks.
When I open the front door, I look out, and the sunrise is pretty. The birds are singing. The sun's out. And, you know, it's just this nice, steady flow of water running through. The whole town had been taken, you know, by the water. It's kind of a numb feeling, really. It's almost like you don't know what to feel because you've never had to feel in that situation.
There's a nice current going here. Downtown.
I really realized how bad it was. You know, it just looks like a big lake with houses in it, a bridge crossing and a railroad. I think it humbled a lot of us. You know, it pulled the town together. Everybody, I think, is even, you know, a lot closer now than they were before the flood. I think we all live our lives with the future in mind, our goals and where we're going to be in 10 years and 20 years. And you realize, well, everything I've worked for up until this point is gone.
As the story of Hurricane Matthew recedes into history, the people and communities left in its wake now face an uncertain future.
Obviously, there's a fear that we're going to keep getting these strong hurricanes hitting the coast. And that's a good fear, actually. We have to build better, we have to prepare better, we have to be more resilient. We're going to live near the water, we have to acknowledge the water is going to come in. So we have to let the water come in and go out and have a way of going about living.
For the survivors of Hurricane Matthew, the fury and power of the storm is an unforgettable and traumatic memory.
Look at this wave. Look at this wave. Oh my God. That's a 5-foot wave and it is blowing.
But to expert meteorologists, Hurricane Matthew and other hurricanes that followed, including Harvey, Irma, and Maria, all contain a dire warning for the future.
I'm hoping that the hurricanes that we've had recently will trigger people and governments to acknowledge the threat that a hurricane can come any year, and it can be a bad hurricane. We just have to acknowledge that and build for it for a good future.
In Fayetteville, Army veteran Cuevas Hart, who used his drone to rescue a man and his dog, is brainstorming on how to turn his hobby into a business.
I've seen that drones could be used in a lot of places, especially emergency management. You know, having drones go out, you know, they save time, money, the police, the fire department, you know, the rescue teams. So that's my mission, you know, seeing how we can innovate drones into these first responders, you know, having drone operators on duty that could do what I did professionally.
In North Myrtle Beach, news reporter Summer Dash searches the rubble of the Cherry Grove fire for hope and a story with a happy ending.
People ask me a lot of times, how do you deal with all the sad stuff you cover? And my answer always is because of what happens after. The firefighters, they're not spraying the flames, they're saving this building. Those people meet the firefighters who sprayed that hose. The man who lost his condo, he has 20 years of memories in that home with his family, but people have come together and they're gonna rebuild that place, and that's positive. So as hard as it is to say these things, I know every single time I have to cover something bad, there's going to be a happy story I get to tell in the end.
In Daytona Beach, Florida, Jimmy Anthony's life is finally getting back to normal.
Thankfully, 1 week before Irma came, I was able to get the seawall done. And thank God, because everything would be gone.
Although Jimmy's decision to ride out Hurricane Matthew may have saved his home, The experience is not one he wants to relive.
Family's more important, and I want to be here with them. So what I did, it jeopardized all that, and I won't do that again, you know? Florida living. That's what it's all about right there, you know, in the end.
People who live on the coast are rebuilding. But as every hurricane season now brings new, powerful storms, they can only wonder if living with such destructive hurricanes is the new normal.
It's hard to look at Matthew and Harvey and Irma and Maria and not say things are changing. We can say that on average the ocean water is warmer, and we've seen that increase the intensity of hurricanes. No matter what we do along the coastlines, the threat is increasing. The number of people are increasing, and sea level is rising. Both of those make the hurricane problem ever so much greater.
Well, I'm getting ready to go up to the Outer Banks, Hurricane Maria offshore of the Outer Banks, but it's going to bring some impacts up there, and so we're going to put some of the equipment out.
For hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth, the storms just keep on coming.
Tropical storm force winds, storm surge, flooding, high waves, all important data, even from a hurricane that's going to be almost 150 miles offshore.
But beyond all the measurements and data he collects, Mark remains sharply aware of the greater challenges that face him and everyone who lives in the hurricane zone.
We can't let these disasters fade from headlines and then we say, well, it's gone now, so we really don't have to worry about mitigation or adaptation. It's like, no, you have to look at these and say, we must do something to build stronger, build smarter, and live with these events. And I think to do that, you have to respect them and understand them. And until we do that, though, we're going to fail every time. So we'll see. That's the chapter that's not been written yet.
Feel the warm blood running down the side of my face.
I have never felt that kind of pain before in my life.
There's pressure crushing my lower back.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 remarkable stories from the water's edge. What's it like when you become human prey? Ike Monreal was nearly killed when an angry gator savagely attacked him in the water hazard on a Florida golf course.
I was slammed from the back. My shoulder wasn't attached anymore.
The Tampa Palms Golf and Country Club, Florida. The kind of place people come to kick back and enjoy the high life. But its ponds and lakes are also home to creatures that have barely changed since the dinosaurs.
Alligators are very common in Florida, and almost any freshwater system can have alligators in it. And that's one of the things that people need to be aware of, is that just because they haven't seen an alligator in an area doesn't mean there isn't one right now.
The lake by hole 13 is the territory of this 7-foot alligator. He's always hungry, and he's not too picky.
As long as they can catch it and eat it, almost anything is potential prey. And they'll take things as big as deer occasionally.
Golfers on this course are always in striking distance of gators, but no one has been attacked yet. "62-year-old Ike Monreal owns a golf ball retrieval service, diving for lost balls in the lakes here. He normally pairs up with one of his sons, but today he's working solo.
Well, I get as many as 12,000 balls in a single day. And at this time and point, I was being paid 8 cents per ball.
Ike's been doing this job for the last 15 years and knows how dangerous it can be.
I've been nudged not knowing the alligator was in the water. That happens. They'll stay down for 15, 20 minutes. So I've been bumped, nudged, nipped, tail whipped. Almost all of us divers working in the southeastern United States, we have close calls like that.
The gator is getting hungrier by the minute. The hot weather triggers its need to kill and feed.
Alligator activity is related to temperature. When temperatures get to their highest, alligators are trying to feed on a very regular basis.
That's a big concern for Ike.
When I approach a lake, I'll look and make sure I'm the only participant in the water.
He sees a familiar sight.
Saw the usual 7.5 foot gator that's there all the time.
Ike keeps a close eye on the reptile.
Females occasionally do attack humans, but it's not as common as males. Males get a lot bigger than females.
The coast seems clear, but Ike is yet to notice that another gator is also in the pond. And this one is a gigantic 400-pound male.
Generally speaking, the larger the alligator, the greater potential problem with an attack on a human.
Ike gets on with his job. The limited visibility means he can't see the 10-foot gator coming straight at him. A gator determined to protect his new territory.
I was just about ready to come out of the water. I had enough air left. Life was good. I was just working away at it.
And that's when the gator moves in.
All of a sudden something clicked at the alligator and it says, I'm going to go ahead and give this a try.
Searing pain shoots through Ike.
The horrific force, the slamming effect, the excruciating pain, and I knew it was going to be life or death.
Like a sledgehammer, the gator's jaws slammed down on his shoulder with 2,000 pounds of pressure.
Teeth are very sharp and they can lacerate and tear, but they don't actually sever like a shark's teeth will do. So an alligator's teeth are mainly meant for holding on.
The pain, in all honesty, on a scale of 1 to 10 was an 11. I have never felt that kind of pain before in my life.
prey items too big to swallow whole, they'll try and spin off pieces.
Ike sees his left shoulder disappear into the gator's jaws. One quick spin, and his arm could be ripped right off.
I couldn't bring my arm back to me, so I thought I had already lost my arm.
Ike stares right into the eye of a monster.
That big, lifeless, dead eye, that look, that eye was right here. I tried getting up and going for the bank.
Incredibly, he crawls towards shore with the alligator still latched onto his shoulder. Seeing two golfers nearby, he desperately tries to get their attention. They can barely believe what they're seeing. Ike is fighting for his life.
I said to myself, you have got to keep your head together here.
Over here! Ike can't last much longer, and he knows it. As well as being ripped apart, he could easily drown. Retrieving golf balls in a pond at a country club in Tampa, Florida, Ike Monreal has been attacked by a vicious 400-pound gator. His screams attract terrified golfers desperate to help save him. The shore is only a few more feet away. Rescue is within grasp. And then Ike's gone.
He had such size and girth, he just drug me right back down again.
An alligator will try and get the victim off balance, trying to drag them out to deeper water. And once it's drowned, then they will dine on it at their leisure.
Ike struggles. He needs to make sure that he keeps his oxygen supply. Without it, he will die in minutes.
I said to myself, you pass out, the regulator falls out of your mouth, and you're going to die here. That's when I prayed to God.
For Ike, it's now or never. He needs to do something, and fast.
I worked my hand around his snout. I was able to turn into him. My shoulder is as far back into his jaw as it can go.
Ike jams his thumb in the reptile's eye.
The most vulnerable part of an alligator is probably its eyes. Everything else is pretty well protected.
But the move barely phases the gator.
An alligator might expect to have slight pressure to its eye if it grabs a large prey item.
Ike could be seconds from dying. He reaches back with everything he's got.
That's when I stuck my thumb as far back into his eye and as down as far as I could.
The move stuns the gator.
But then when he went further in, this was something that was totally unexpected by the alligator.
He just went ballistic. The bite got worse, and that's when he tried to roll me.
They will grab a hold of an appendage and then spin in the water to try and get that appendage torn off.
He's in so much pain, Ike can't keep his thumb in the gator's eye socket.
I was thinking that it was, you know, the demise. The end was there. I saw my wife and my 3 teenage sons looking down at me. And I said, that's not going to work. I said, I'm not going to die out here. I am not going to give up. Whatever it takes, I'm coming out of the water.
Luckily, the fight takes them into the shallows. At last, Ike can get a foothold. Now he can stop the gator from rolling him.
I was not going to let him kill me. I was not going to let him drown me.
And then Ike goes in for another attack.
I certainly wasn't going to let him sit there and twist off whatever he had in his mouth. I took my thumb again, took a deep breath, and slammed it in his eye socket, and I swear I got halfway to his brain.
Alligators can feel and react to pain. They don't like that.
Against all odds, the giant's jaws finally snap open. Ike seizes the opportunity and desperately tries to get out of the water.
They learn very fast and probably realized this was not the type of thing that it wanted to pursue.
Ike scrambles onto the bank before the gator changes his mind and comes back.
I looked up at the gentleman that was standing on the green. I said, just make sure he doesn't come out of the water after me. I said, I don't think I can handle another bite.
The alligator swims away.
He went out into the deeper part of the swamp. And at that point, I knew I was safe.
Are you all right? Are you okay?
He dislocated my shoulder. My shoulder wasn't attached anymore. There were teeth holes 1 inch across, 1.5 inches deep over the shoulder.
Paramedics on their way.
It's bad, but things could have been far worse. Ike's 17-year-old son had originally been scheduled to work that day.
He wouldn't have had the size or the experience. The horrific fact of all of this is I would have lost my son.
Ike may never fully regain the use of his arm. He and his sons have not returned to the water since the attack.
My sons do not dive anymore. My business is Ike and Sons. My boys I'll not let go in the water anymore. So do I want to get even? You betcha.
4 hours after the attack, a state-licensed trapper captures an 8-foot alligator from the lake, 50 feet from the scene of the crime.
If we didn't do that, there is no doubt there would be a lot more attacks because alligators become habituated, and if they have a successful attack, they'll come back for another one.
Ike doesn't believe the trapper got the one that wanted him as prey.
I think she trapped the smaller, the 7.5, 8-footer that was there. And I do not think to this day that it was that smaller gator.
In that case, the gator that nearly killed him is still out there. Alligators can prove lethal in the southern U.S., but in Africa and Australia, the biggest threat to humans is their deadlier cousin. Crocodiles kill as many as 200 people every year. The largest and most aggressive is the saltwater crocodile, a powerful reptile that can outlive humans and grow to more than 20 feet in length. Despite the name, their natural habitat is actually freshwater rivers and swamps. What makes them so deadly is their uncanny camouflage. In September 1872, Australian Constable William Davis decided to break police regulations and take a refreshing swim in Darwin Harbor. Davis spotted a log floating some distance out and swam over to it. Suddenly, the log started swimming towards him, very quickly. Davis soon realized it was a saltwater crocodile that had left a river and headed into the harbor. But it was too late. As Davis started to swim away, the croc zeroed in, its jaws crashing down on his head. Constable William Davis became the first police fatality in Australia's Northern Territory. More than 100 years later, amateur diver Jeff Tanswell was also savaged by a saltwater croc. it turned a snorkeling trip into a bloody battle for his life.
And we were screaming, "Don't let him eat me, just don't let him eat me."
Northern Australia. Protected by law, the saltwater croc population has swelled nearly 5,000% over the last 30 years to as many as 150,000. They are man-eaters, and no stretch of water anywhere is safe. On a tidal river, this 12-footer is looking for its next meal.
Their diet consists usually of fish and crabs, crustaceans, small mammals, that kind of thing. But an 18-foot crocodile can drag down a buffalo if it really wants to.
Although he normally hunts in rivers, today he heads out into the open sea.
People have seen saltwater crocodiles swimming past oil rigs and past boats just in the middle of the ocean. And so what's this crocodile doing? It's just swimming from one point to another.
On Thursday Island, at the northern tip of Queensland, 37-year-old police sergeant Jeff Tanswell and his wife Jane, also a trained police officer, are hitting the water for a day of fun in the sun.
My entire life I've been brought up by the water. So we've always been brought up with boats and diving and fishing, and that's just second nature.
If we go fishing, or we'd just go out and have a look and jump out on a reef. Hi! Hey! Hi!
Today they plan on doing some spear fishing with their friends Amanda and Dave. They head towards the remote Adolphus Islands, an hour away.
We hadn't been there before, so this was going to be another opportunity for us to explore.
The ocean around here is dangerous.
We're a bit, I guess, aware of the possibility of sharks being in the water.
It's something that's always stored in the back of your head. Let's just enjoy the ride, but let's be aware. Keep an eye out for a shark.
The last thing on Jeff's mind is running into an aggressive saltwater croc.
All I knew was that crocodiles inhabit the coastline, and they need to go from river to river to river. And they do not go out to sea. And that was what I was brought up with.
But he's wrong, dead wrong. A wandering killer croc is also headed to the Adolphus Islands on a collision course with Jeff's party. They pull into a coral reef and scout for any signs of predators.
We were making sure that there was no sharks or anything in the water that was dangerous, but we didn't see any sharks.
If there's going to be a shark, he's going to be patrolling the deep water. So I'm not going to go there. I'm going to take the safer option, and I'm going to go in closer to the coast.
Amanda and Dave are the first ones in. Because they're entering unfamiliar waters, Jeff asks his wife to stay on board.
You have to leave someone on the boat just for safety. If you catch a fish, if it bleeds, you don't want to have fish blood in the water. Could attract sharks, so if they catch a fish or crayfish or something, they just hold it up and I start the boat, go over.
Jeff enters deep in an alien world where he is both the hunter and the potential prey.
You can see all the little colourful fish dancing around in amongst all this brightly lit coral. I saw the other two diving with us. They started heading out a bit wide. And I remember thinking, I'm not comfortable diving out to where the coral edge is, where it drops off into the deeper water, because sharks could come and go.
But sharks are not the problem. The hungry 12-foot saltwater croc is closing in.
I remember a little voice in the back of my head going, there could be other big things out here.
The giant croc quietly stalks Jeff and his friends. It's breeding season, and like all crocs, he's more aggressive than usual. Jeff heads up for air.
I just thought I'd been hit by a boat. The fear that a predator instills in its prey is it's bottomless.
No matter how fast you move, if a crocodile's head is half a metre from you and it strikes, you cannot possibly get away.
Jane can't quite make out what's going on.
And it all happened within a matter of a split second. I remember staring at that bit of water going, did I just see what I saw, or is that my imagination?
The crocodile clamps down on Jeff's head.
And I've become aware of this pressure on my head, this crushing pressure on my head.
The crocodiles have got the strongest jaw muscles of any animal that we know for their size. They've got about 66, sometimes 68 teeth in their jaws. They'll puncture through flesh, they'll go through shell, and they'll even go into bone.
Jeff is dragged down with his head ripped open. He's bleeding heavily and running out of air.
He's just gone down with no splash, no screaming, no kicking. Jeff? Jeff!
I had no feeling of the water, the temperature, sounds, everything, sight, everything was gone. They've got the power just to shut down your entire system and you don't have a say in it. It was a mixture of just horror as well as just total disbelief. You're on a remote tropical coral island. You're not looking for a crocodile.
Jane starts the boat to stop it drifting. She has absolutely no idea that her husband below is being drowned by a giant croc.
I could feel by my neck muscles that he's pulling me down to the sea floor by my head.
That is one of the things that a crocodile will do if it wants to overpower its prey. Most animals can't hold their breath for anything like as long as a crocodile can.
Jeff knows he can't stay under for more than a couple of minutes.
Trying to stop what's going on, but I can't. He's just too big, too strong. I remember kicking badly with my fins. You're just in overload. I don't know if it's adrenaline or what, it's all your senses trying to work overtime to save you.
And then, a miracle.
I remember seeing the jaws release and the sudden burst of light, and I just shot to the surface.
I saw his head come up and him blow the water out of his snorkel.
Jeff has no idea where the croc is and when it might bite again.
Well, what was going through my head was his big block head coming back up and grabbing my legs.
And then just behind his head, I thought I saw something moving.
The killer croc surfaces inches away, closing in on his prey.
I could feel the warm blood running down the side of my face. He's got the teeth, he's got the scales, he's got the claws, he's got everything. You have nothing.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the most unexpected thing.
I remember looking at this thing, and then the brains kicked into gear going, we've got to try and survive this.
The croc slowly circles. It sizes up Jeff from every angle. It could rip him apart at any moment.
If the prey is large, then it will produce what's known as the death roll. And then it spins its entire body. If a crocodile grabs me on the arm and starts to spin, the weak point here is at the elbow or at the shoulder, and that's where it will dislocate.
We all know that these things come back to finish you off.
Jeff realizes he may only have minutes to live. Police Sergeant Jeff Tanswell has been brutally attacked by a saltwater crocodile in Queensland, Australia. And now his wife, Jane, also a trained officer, is desperate to save him before the croc finishes him off.
Straight away, you just think, this is it. Someone's going to die here. I just had to try and get him out of the water.
Jeff's frantic movements are only making matters worse. He needs to get back to the boat before the reptile returns for more.
If you splash and splash and splash, the croc can feel that, it can hear it, and it's more likely to attract it back to the place.
Stuck my head in the water a couple of times, just trying to see where the hell he went.
Next minute, I had the boat beside him, and I was helping him in the boat from the left-hand side of the boat. I don't know how I pulled him out of the water. I think it was just a pure adrenaline.
Open your eyes. Look at me, I'm right here, okay?
Concerned about their friends, Jane swings the boat around to the other side of the bay and finds Amanda and Dave unharmed. But the monster croc is still somewhere below. Everyone may be safely in the boat, but Jeff's wounds are serious.
I got a puncture hole in my left cheek. I got a laceration on my left temple. The left ear was torn. And I got lacerations behind both my ears where the teeth went in, and scratches on my back where his claws went in.
It's essential Jeff gets to the hospital as quickly as possible, but they are a good hour away from the coast.
He could have a brain injury, he could have some sort of compression on his brain, he could have a stroke.
He could also be infected by the croc.
Well, its teeth are covered in mud, covered in bacteria. It's a breeding ground for bacteria. If that crocodile then bites you, it drives those bacteria deep into your flesh, and it can cause a much bigger problem than the bite itself.
Crocs kill as many as 200 people a year. And right now, Jeff looks like he might join that gruesome club.
I got to the hospital and went straight into the emergency room.
I had all my wounds scraped and washed out, which was quite painful. And then they microsurgery my ear and stitched everything back together.
He owes his life to Jane's quick rescue and pure luck.
Certainly, if it wanted to kill him, it would have.
Jeff knows all too well how close he came to death.
And there is nothing as terrifying as realising that this thing is going to come along and eat you, and you can't do a thing about it.
No further attacks were reported in the Adolphus Island region that summer. Most likely, the saltwater crocodile returned to the coast and headed upriver. The worst saltwater croc attack is said to have happened in World War II during the Battle of Ramree Island in Burma. Surrounded by British troops, a group of Japanese soldiers desperately tried to escape through mangrove swamps infested with saltwater crocs. The next morning, only 20 survivors were found. Nearly 400 may have been devoured by the hungry crocs. The Guinness Book of World Records ranks the attack as the worst animal disaster in history. But crocodiles are by no means the most dangerous animal in the water. That title falls to the hippo, Africa's most deadly creature. Weighing as much as a small pickup truck, hippos kill around 200 people in Africa each year. For millennia, they have been a deadly threat to people living throughout Africa. The mighty Egyptians had the most to fear. Hippos used to live all along the Nile, the lifeblood of their civilization. They were a danger to boats and to people working on the river's edge. The animals were considered so powerful, they were associated with gods. Kings hunted them from royal ships. it was a brutally dangerous sport. In around 3100 BC, Menes, the first king of unified Egypt, is said to have been carried off and killed by a hippopotamus during such a hunt, ending his 62-year reign. More than 5,000 years later, while leading a river safari in Zimbabwe, guide Paul Templar also found out just how brutal a hippo attack can be.
I had tusks going through me every which way but loose. There was a lot of blood in the water. You could see he'd been quite badly bitten.
The Zambezi, one of the largest rivers in Africa, and home to this huge male hippo. The lone bull is particularly aggressive. It probably recently lost a fight with another male and was thrown out of its pod or herd. And now he's viciously protecting his new territory.
Hippos respond the same way we would if someone repeatedly broke into our homes, with extreme aggression.
The bachelor bull has attacked 7 people in the last few months, defending its turf. And he's more than ready to do it again. Zimbabwe River guide Paul Templar is enjoying a quiet afternoon off when he's unexpectedly asked for a special favor.
Hey, what's up, man? Good. That's how you doing? That's cool. All good. Hey guys, I got plans. Go to Sunset Cruise.
I was sitting in the pub when the folks came in and said, hey, we need a guide. So now I had a tough choice to make. Do I spend the rest of my day sitting in the pub, or do I go and lead the canoe safari?
No, today. Okay. Let's go.
I went and led the canoe safari.
It's a decision he would soon regret.
Good afternoon, guys. My name's Paul. We are the crew responsible for taking you down this Zambezi River this afternoon. It's going to be a fantastic
Paul is joined by 3 other guides, Ben, Evans, and his close friend, Mike McNamara. It's a trip they've done lots of times before.
The trip itself is what we call a wine route. It's one of the trips where the guests don't actually paddle themselves. And the idea is that they just relax and watch the sun go down. It's a sunset trip. It lasts about an hour and a half. The idea was just to sit back and relax and take in everything that nature had to offer.
Paul is on the lookout for the rogue hippo that has attacked 7 others over the last few months. He's already had his own nasty run-in with the 3-ton monster.
About 6 months prior to this, I'd been leading a similar canoe safari, and I'd been attacked by a big, brute of a hippo.
The hippo had smacked the bottom of Paul's canoe, catapulting him and 2 passengers into the water. That time, they had escaped unharmed.
I knew that that hippo was in the area, and though I couldn't see him, I thought going through the narrow channels would be my safest option.
And so far, so good. As they come around the bend, Paul notices a large pod of hippos.
They weren't really a concern. They were off to the side, and I could see them, and I felt that I had a pretty good sense of what they were up to.
They proceed cautiously, making sure they don't startle the hippos. Paul also scans the water for any that are submerged.
Occasionally you'll get ears, occasionally you'll get a head, occasionally you'll get the whole body. Then there'll be nothing. They'll all disappear underwater. You watch the water's moving differently if there's a couple of ton hippo moving around beneath it.
All seems to be going well. They safely get past the pod into faster moving water. And then
I turned just in time to see Evans flying through the air.
Likely it's the same rogue hippo, from underwater, he surfaced like a giant torpedo and knocked Evans clear out of the boat. Paul watches in horror as the current drags Evans away.
Evans went under and then popped up again.
Paul paddles full speed towards Evans.
I turn my canoe around, so I'm going backwards, so I'm between whatever's there and him. I back in to try to rescue him.
Paul reached for him with a paddle, shouting to him to grab the paddle so that he could pull him out.
I'm probably 4 or 5 feet away from him when I see this bow wave cruising in towards me.
And it was at that point where the hippo just erupted next to Paul.
While he's trying to help his friend, the hippo turns on Paul and attacks.
Just all hell broke loose.
The hippo just closed its jaws on his upper torso and pulled him off the boat.
The hippo tries to swallow Paul whole.
They attack the boats not because they recognize I will get to the people in here, but because they recognize it as a foreign object that needs to be removed.
I remember this incredible pressure crushing down on my lower back.
Hippos are not interested in eating the people that get attacked. It's an aggressive reflex of, if I encounter something with my jaw, I will crush it. So the crushing comes from the hydraulic press that is their jaw, somewhere on the order of maybe 1,800 pounds. What the canines do is act as hole punchers. They can go through anything. They are strong, they are massive, they are sharp.
Paul is kicking and clawing for his life. He needs to get out from the mouth of the beast. Evans also needs urgent help. He's in danger of drowning in the strong currents. There's nothing fellow guide Mike can do.
We couldn't get to Evans because the hippo was in the way.
Finally, Paul's aggressive struggling pays off.
Pushed and pulled. At one point, the monster loosened his grip long enough for me to escape. I just sucked in a lung full of fresh air, and I came face to face with Evans.
But Evans doesn't look right at all.
I got the sense that all was not well. He wasn't going anywhere. I think terror and panic had quite literally overwhelmed him.
For Evans, it's too late. He's drowned in the strong current.
He literally just rolled his eyes up and he sank and he was dead.
And that's when the hippo zeroes in on Paul again.
At this point, it was all up to the hippo, and really, there's nothing you can do.
This time, the hippo is clamped down on Paul's legs, tearing into skin and bones.
The hippo started the attack and was not going to finish the aggressive behavior until the intruders were gone.
It happened very quickly, and you could see that it was a serious attack, that there was going to be some serious injuries out of this.
They don't just try to win, they try to destroy their opponent. One of the clients watching later said that it was like watching a vicious dog, literally just trying to rip apart a rag doll. These huge tusks tearing through my torso as it drove me underwater. So I had tusks going through me every which way but loose. He bit down so hard that I thought for sure he was going to bite me in half.
The hippo has speared Paul badly, and now he starts dragging him down to drown him.
I remember lying on the bottom of the river and looking up. I remember I could see the different hues of green and yellow and the sunlight shining on the water surface. And I thought to myself, I wonder who can hold their breath the longest.
Paul is close to death. Most humans can't go without breathing for much more than a minute, while the hippo can stay under 5 times longer.
Fighting for territory is just second nature to hippos, and fighting to the death is second nature. They don't hold back at all.
I watched my blood mingle with the water, and I just wondered which would happen first, if I'd bleed to death or if I'd drown.
During Following a bloody hippo attack in Zimbabwe, Africa, one man has died, while another, river guide Paul Templer, has been gored by the creature's teeth and dragged to the river floor. And now, Paul is also drowning. All anyone can do is look on helplessly.
The amount of blood that was in the water showed that Paul had been bitten very badly.
There's no sign anywhere of Paul. There's no way he could have survived a second attack.
I didn't think I'd see him again. And then Paul popped up.
But then the hippo spat me out again, giving me another chance to escape.
Barely alive, Paul is bleeding badly. Mike guns forward on his kayak to save him. He knows there's not a second to lose.
I was just shouting to him to grab the front of the kayak.
I managed to grab a hold of the handle on the boat's nose.
For a moment, Paul seems safe. But the hippo comes back for more. It tries to chomp down on Paul's dangling legs. Any second, they'll be dragged down again.
He was hitting and thrashing, and it was not good. I knew I didn't have much left in me.
He can barely hold on. One arm is shredded. Both shoulders are punctured with bites. But astoundingly, the hippo backs off.
They're very unlikely to actually come into shallower water to follow an attack. It's not what they do.
To get to the shallows, Mike has to fight the current. Paul is losing his grip.
I was bleeding profusely. I was getting weaker.
Paul hangs on. Mike paddles wildly. It's a race against time.
I paddled to a point where there was a tuft of grass on a small rock sticking out of the river.
The longer it lasted, the more it sapped my energy.
Finally, they reach the shallows.
I don't know how we do it, but Mac dragged me out of there.
The hippo then stopped the attack, moved back, and popped up, but not actually following us into the shallower water.
Out of his element, the hippo gives up the chase.
Oh, I got you, buddy. Just hang in there.
Paul is barely alive.
Oh, hang on, look at me. Look at me, buddy. Just keep breathing. We got you.
He needs medical attention desperately. To make matters worse, the first aid kit and a radio have both washed away.
His arm, from what we could see without ripping the sleeve off, had been bitten through the bone 2 or 3 times. It was shattered. Had a bite mark through the shoulder that you could virtually see daylight through. He was bitten through the foot.
Hey, look at me. Look at me, Paul. Look at me. Stay with me. Something that's working.
Mike and fellow guide Ben try to stop Paul from bleeding to death.
And started literally putting pressure on arteries to try and just stem the bleeding that was still coming.
I can feel my lungs full of blood, man.
Thinking fast, Mike uses the only thing available, cling wrap from the safari meals. They seal all visible puncture wounds on Paul's chest. Mike and Ben lift Paul into a canoe.
When I put him in the boat and sent him off, I thought he was going to die.
Hold on.
He definitely didn't look as though with those injuries he could survive.
The only way out is right through the killer hippo's territory.
What we're seeing is an animal under stress. The first time that someone breaks into your house, maybe you won't fight them off. The second time, maybe you'll fight them off a bit more. By the 10th time, you're armed and ready to go.
But as we were pulling out and this angry hippo was still there, I thought for sure he was going to come and finish me off.
But the hippo chooses to stay put, and Paul is quickly taken downriver. By chance, along the way, they meet a local medical crew conducting emergency drills.
There's a shock trauma team who are just practicing. Just go figure, a couple of minutes away.
They take Paul on an 8-hour drive to the hospital, where he learns that his arm is beyond repair.
They took off part of the song. They took it off just above the elbow to start with. I got gas gangrene, which meant that my body was rotting from the inside, so they ended up having to chop more of me off.
In the end, his arm is amputated. Mike and the river raft clients are rescued later that night. A search party is sent out for Evans.
It was a full 2 days before we found his body quite a bit further downstream. It had washed out.
The rogue hippo is never found. Animal attacks are rare.
People are fair game, but we aren't a normal prey item for them. They usually avoid people.
But as we increasingly crowd their water world, run-ins are bound to happen.
They're animals that are trying to protect their territory. You know, this is their habitat and this is the area they need to survive.
And when these river killers do attack, we become their human prey.